Good evening. Welcome to the Siddha-Vetha webinar series. Today our speaker is Bhima, and the title is Art and Science of Mridangam. Bhima, Mridanga Guru, Hare Krishna Halder, is a PhD from Ravindra Bharati University in Kolkata, has blessed him to represent his ancient tradition. Bhima performs and teaches worldwide. Raised in an ashram and schooled in India's Vedic culture, Bhima loved playing Mridanga from a young age. By his late teens, his competency was notable and he began performing, recording and touring with Krishnadas, Shamdas, Jai Utal and many others. Desiring to delve deeply into the sacred musical culture and technical art of his beloved instrument, he moved to India for more than 10 years, where he studied Mridanga along with the related Sanskrit literature, history and traditions to gain a comprehensive understanding of its full form as a developed spiritual, mystical and musical discipline. On the order of his guru, he has returned home to share this ancient sacred musical culture. He is now offering Mridangam workshops and is available for kirtan accompaniment, lectures, musical performance and students of all levels. Throughout this life, Sri Mridanga has been his spiritual connection, practice and offering. Taking shelter of the Vedic tradition, he guides students in exploring Mridangam as an expression and development of our essential nature. He is here to create, celebrate, educate and support all levels of interest. Bhima Saragrahi, Mridanga, Kirtan, Indian classical music, Samskriti Kirtan, Mridangam, Vedic music, Krishna. So, I welcome Bhima Karmaji to take over.
Pranamami. Thank you so much, Sean. It was a real pleasure last year when I first was seeing your presentation on, it was actually quite a comprehensive, compressed presentation on such a diversity and wealth of knowledge on these Vedic natural sciences. And I was immediately inspired to get to know you right after the seminar and keep in touch. And so it's really wonderful to be here. Thank you so much. So thank you for the kind introduction. And basically, I'll start off with Om Mridangaya Namo Namaha. So as all Vedic sciences deal with the three levels of reality, you can say, just like in the typical symbol of the wheel, right? We have the hub of the wheel, or the central piece into which all things are connected. And then you have those pieces that are connecting. And then finally the rim that, just like the entire universe, is being formed from one substantive principle, which is universal to everything. So the musical sciences are absolutely no different, as all the Vedic sciences are just like spokes being plugged into the hub of that wheel. And so as a child, I had no idea of this. My mother gave me a Mridanga when I was a young boy, and I just had a natural fascination and love for it. And when I was moving to India, finally, to decide whether studying Mridanga was for me, I still had no idea about that. And after about 6 years of study of doing hand exercises and so on, I started to delve into asking, what are the actual fundamental ideas in the Vedas behind rhythm and so on. While I had been raised in an ashram and had always been steeped in, Upanishadic and, Bhagavad Gita and Puranic lore, I really didn't know much about these, you can say, these more logical, mystical realms about the Vedic knowledge. It was more in philosophical terms, or what we call darshanam. So when I started finally reading the Natya Shastra, which is the universally recognized pramana, or the proof text, you can say, which is like the seed for most of the performance art sciences called natya. Then I started really understanding some of the deeper connections. So before we go into more of that, I think I'll just start with a little bit of music to set the mood and get some flavor. So the mridanga is, you can see here, it's covered with cloth, but the body of this drum is actually made of, in Sanskritam, what we say mrud. So mrud means clay. We can recognize it very readily in English, the word mud, right? Mrud becomes mud. So the body of this drum is composed of the clay pot. They make 2 clay pots, and then they form it into one body. And then that clay body is then taken over by the mridanga maker, who then takes the different pieces of the hide and forms it into the 2 opposing heads. So we have a very enlarged base, right? The low side, which is characteristic of Pungbhav, or masculine energy, Purusha. And we have the treble, which is very small and very high sound, which is very characteristic of Stribhav, right? Or Prakriti, the feminine energy. And so unanimously in all traditional cultures, and certainly Vedic culture no less, all the more, all of existence is seen as a dance between these 2 polarities, which form the 2 main aspects of the one entity referred to as Brahma, right? By many names: Brahma, Paramatma, Bhagavan, Purusha, Purushottama, and so on. So it's a very unique and very deeply interesting musical instrument from many angles. So for one thing, this is an instrument which is mentioned in many ancient literatures, and it is therefore a living piece of many thousands years old culture. And when I say living, it means it's still an alive tradition. It's still an instrument we can hold in our hands and hear that music just as it was heard thousands of years ago. So it's a very unique and interesting way to get a direct experience about the Vedic, you can say Dharmic, you can say Indic, right? This ancient culture that is now centralized in India, which is a veritable wellspring of seed knowledge that has been feeding our world for, we really don't know how long, as far back as history reaches. So I'll just go ahead and play for you just a little bit and give a little flavor. So our main stroke is the open one, of course. We begin with ja. So there you have a little taste of some of the amazing, variegated, diverse sounds that the Mridanga makes and the rhythmic patterns. And these traditional compositions, not only have we know that specific compositions have been with us for a long time, but the roots of these compositions are actually Vedic cosmology itself. And when I say Vedic, I don't mean that just referring to the traditions of the 4 Vedas, which can be rooted perhaps in the Rig Veda and history and so on, but rather all of these traditions, which are, as I said, localized, you can say, in India now, they all had a grand view in which, first of all, we see that everything is one entity. And we can use this Brahma, right, to refer to this one entity. And within that entity, we have any entity, right, is reflecting this as well. So that the Adidaiva, that entity, that divine entity, possesses, right, internal and external aspects. So you can say the unseen, unmanifest, unchanging and singular aspect, right, that contains the structure, the logic, and so on. This is like the Adhyatmic or Purusha aspect, masculine aspect, and the manifest, right, diverse, constantly fluctuating, right? That aspect, the Prakriti, right, these 3, the feminine aspect, is very beautifully depicted here. Now, furthermore, I'm going to share a couple of slides here so we can just take a look at some of this material. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, there we go. I'll put this in presentation mode. And I just have a few slides actually that I'll share. I'm not going to do a whole presentation that I usually do, but my system that I teach is called Sacred Rhythm. So here. So I spoke earlier about Natya Shastra. So the Mridanga is referred to in many Vedic literatures, as you can see on the bottom here. Mridanga is mentioned in the Vedas, Puranas, Itihasa, right? Pretty much anywhere where there's this ancient culture that has been flowing through the whole Southern Asia area, Mridanga has been mentioned. So in the Natya Shastra, it's a pen put to, you can say, the dating of the writing of Natya Shastra, which at the time of writing was a completely, very heavily developed performance art, which is steeped in a basic philosophy about what is aesthetic experience, right? We call rasa vichara, or considering things in terms of the rasa, or the essential nature of the experiences that we have, what brings about those experiences in terms of bhava, and makes that rasa arise in the experiencer. So it has this fundamental aspect, plus the logic that develops out into dance, instrumental music, right, lyricism, right, all of the different rhythmic instruments, and then inside of the instruments, of course, it develops into the string instruments, the struck instruments, the winded, right, shushira, so many. And so in the 33rd chapter of Natya Shastra, there's a chapter devoted just to speaking about what is called avanadha vadya. So vadya means music, and avanadha means covered instrument. So this one is hollow, made of clay, and it's covered on both sides, and so avanadha. So in that 33rd chapter there, and this is, I'm making this reference to just show how this instrument, it's not just an evolute or something that has evolved out of this ancient tradition, but it is actually the same form, the same instrument itself. So in that 33rd chapter, there's 3 kritis. So kriti, right, is like a make of something, to make something, right, with your action. So the 3 kritis, the 3 makes of Mridanga are mentioned there. And they are also deified as being aspects or in the rhythm world of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the three deities, right? So the three primeval deities. And so it's very interesting to note their relationships, which we'll talk about in a moment. But you can see here the haritaki fruit. Haritaki is a fruit that is still commonly used in many medicinal preparations. And so you can see some of them hanging on a tree. And you can see the shape of this fruit is very clearly, distinctly like this drum, where the belly is fat towards the bottom and the top of where the fruit is hanging on the tree is very small. So we have a small treble head, a very enlarged belly, and then the base, of course, tapers down at the end a little bit as well. So now I'm going to come back to we'll get back to that. Okay, stop share. There we go. So as you can see here, I'll just show the shape of the Mridanga again, right? It's exactly the shape of that haritaki fruit as it's mentioned. So what are the other shapes? What is the significance? Will really open our eyes to the basic concept of the drum and what it's doing and what its deeper use is in terms of the mystical aspect of things. So as we said before, we have this Purusha, masculine energy represented here, and the Prakriti, Stri, Bhav, feminine expression represented there. Now, the music is all we call the Swara Mandal, right? Swara, the vibration, and the Mandal, right? This circular pattern that the music is, right, vibrating in, has a bass note, and this is, right, the sarga, right, sargam. So the bass note of the singer is what everything would be tuned to. So if my bass note says sa, right, then the drums that are more familiar in India right now, that are basically, in other words, popular in performance music as what goes under the English term classical music. That's in South India and North India both. You'll hear about tabla, you'll hear about pakhavaj, and you'll hear about, in the South, mridangam. So all these three drums that I've just mentioned, their treble head will not be tuned high like this. Their treble head, right, will be tuned to the sa, or the bass note of the singer. So if everything is one entity, and we have these two polarities within that one entity, right? Purusha and Prakriti. What we talk about when we say the word yoga, which is a very popular, right, widely known term now, which means connection. So if we think about this one entity there with these two polarities, and these two polarities are always in connection. Now there's two ways, two extreme polarized ways in which that connection can be taking place. So the sa, or the bass note, represents what we can call sanyoga, or when there is this type of connection, which is unity, right? There's unified connection where the masculine and feminine polarities are together with each other, and there's a settlement. It's resolved connection. For instance, if I strike the head of the drum with this type of a sound, right, there's no vibration left. It's completely resolved and it's grounded. And if we listen to the sound, it's a very settling, relaxing sound. It's the sound of being home. It's the sound of union, right? My fingers, right, they're meeting that head, and the sound is completely resolved. So the Purusha and Prakriti are meeting, and there's peace. So the drums that are tuned to the sa sound will be, as we say in English, there's the parasympathetic, which, right, this comes from, right, para, right, superior in Sanskrit, the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms, it soothes, it brings about a more docile and meditative state. Whereas we have this drum, sa re ga ma pa ya, this one is tuned to what we call the pancham, or the fifth note out of the 7 scales, right? So we also have in the cosmology, we have 7 lower and 7 higher, right? Platforms of consciousness, right? Levels of reality in the cosmos, right? Types of beings also that are, right, evolving from these different strata, right, of vibration and so on. So the pancham is considered the climax of that scale, whereas the sa, right, is that the root or the base. So we have these 2 forms of mridanga on these polar opposites, right, which are representing, right, Brahma and Vishnu here. And then the Shiva type of drum would be exactly the same on both sides. So we, those of you who know, right, about, right, Lord Shiva, Shivaji, he plays a damaru, right, which is, in basic, it's a drum that has a rope on either side that has a bead on it, and it's going boom, 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 and it's hitting a head on either side that is exactly the same. And so what Shiva does is he does his dance of destruction or deconstruction and breaks down, right, this, you can say, this illusion of diversity, and shows us once again by breaking all of these elements down and showing that it's one. So that drum that represents Shivaji is the same on both sides. And you can still see some of these drums being used in Assam, Nepal, right? Some of these different countries, and many throughout India, of course, but there it's more widely used. Whereas you see most popular and common is the drums associated with the sa, as I mentioned, tabla, pakawaj, mridangam in the south. And then this drum is actually the last of its kind left using the pancham. And it's also the very last. So all of these 3 drums I've mentioned, right, where the treble is tuned to the bass note, this one where the treble is tuned to the 5th note, the climax note, and the 3rd kind representing Shiva, which is the same on both sides. All of them were made of clay, all of them called Mridanga. And they each had like specific names, right? Ankuki, Ankika, right? Like this. But they're all made of mrid or mud or clay because of the very special vibration qualities of the clay. So in Vedic culture, they weren't, and again, Vedic culture, so right, Indic culture. In this ancient culture, they weren't concerned about the, right now, all of these drums, pakawaj, tabla, mridangam, many of these, mardal, they're all made of wood now, because the wood they considered just recently, within the last few hundred years, it changed. It's more convenient to tune the drum, right, and so on. But this is a very superficial consideration, because the quality of the vibration is what was important. And this is the key concept around which all of the traditions, period, but especially the musical traditions, have been formed. So this Mridanga here is the last completely pure and authentic representation of the sacred rhythm tradition of this Mridanga left with us. But just like anything here, and I'll just show you one image to make the point a little more dramatic again. So here we go, sharing, and I have one more image, right? So it's like here's a picture of a seed. So this is our seed mantra we use, the te re keta. This drum is like a seed, and it can, again, if we simply use it to connect to the very deep concepts and ideas that are the foundation of the culture, they can be used to completely remanifest that culture. Sorry, I just wanted to put the full screen there. Good. So that is really the focus here, is to notice that what has happened, and this is not just in India, certainly tragically in India, because it's like as I was saying earlier, a wellspring that has really been feeding the whole world, right? This pure stream coming out of like an icy cliffs, feeding that pure water which has been frozen in ancient time, you know, and feeding the rest of the world. There's been a disconnection, but not just in India, and all over the world, that all of these arts and sciences were all based in these commonly held notions that whether we're talking in terms of spiritual philosophy, whether we're talking in terms of deep sciences, such as medical sciences, such as botanical sciences, engineering sciences, right? Here, musical sciences, many sciences are there, right? Avidya. Or whether we're talking about the specific traditions which pass down the technical, physical aspects of those sciences, which had been developed over many generations and passed down. All cultures in the world had this common view that what these sciences are all supposed to be completely representative of the universe itself and its symmetry, its macro and microcosmic nature, if you will. So the Mridanga here, for me, I had no idea it would lead me here, has become really part of my own journey of reconnecting to that culture myself. And so I wanted to now, let's see here. I want to now do an exercise with you all, and you can all participate. And this will give us all a direct experience now. I've been talking for some time, and I want to give everyone some direct experience of just the depth of what we're talking about. So without even having to have a drum, what we're going to do is we're going to do just a Ganaka, a counting exercise. And let's just first out, we'll start off with counting. So I'm actually going to get out of here, and I'm going to just show you with my own hands. Stop share. Here we go. There. Okay, so we're going to do a counting exercise, and we're going to count with our thumb, and we're going to count on these lines of our hand. So we have 3 lines. So let's touch the first line here, and then the second line, and the third line, and then we use the fingertip as the number 4. So we're going to say 1, bring your finger up, 2, bring your finger up, 3, bring your finger up, and 4, bring your finger up. Now, right, rhythm always has the part that we're touching and this empty part. So what is rhythm is actually just a point and a return to the point. What is the size or the quantity of that time in between, right, is defined with our first stroke. So we're going to say 1, up, 2, up, 3, up, 4, up. Now, let's do this again. 1, 2. Now, right at that point where we were sensing the number 3, right, Trini, right, should come. How do we get this knowledge about where's the right time for that matra, for that count to come? This is a very deep question. Let's all again feel. There's a feeling coming, some knowledge coming to us about when is that time coming. Let's do again. 1, 2, right? So this is the most fundamental principle in rhythm, and we have this term we call laya. So in English, the term tempo is used, and this is how it's generally translated as tempo. But tempo just refers to basically the speed a piece of music is moving on. And we have to wrap up in just a few minutes, but we're going to get through this one exercise and then we'll turn it over. So, but laya is a much deeper idea. So laya is speaking to a flow, a flow. And if we look in the Sanskrita, right, the kosha, the dictionary, that laya refers to that flow in which all the other things are dissolved. So no matter what subject matter we're actually speaking about, we can apply this definition very nicely. That one who has understood any subject matter can understand it in terms of one flow into which all of those sub parts of that subject matter are dissolved, and they understand that one entity without needing to understand at once all of the details. So now we can do this exercise, and then the second finger, we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we've just doubled the frequency by filling that gap. So 1, 2 instead of 1 and empty. So we start on the first finger, which is we call a guna. We call these gunas. Guna means the multiple, right? Jati, the masculine is the division. Guna, the feminine, is multiplying. So we say 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the next 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the next one we double again. 1, 2 when we touch. 3, 4 when we come up. And we'll do that 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to come to the last finger, and we're going to count to 4, both when we touch the finger and when we come up. So we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've taken 1, multiplied it, and made 2. Multiplied it, made 4. Multiplied it, made 8. Now we're going to do this all together. Now, what we want to do though, the success of this exercise, the fruit of this exercise is that we're focusing on the experience in the mana of the laya. So when we touch the finger and we speak the number, we want that vak, or that speech, and we want, right, our body, the adibautic aspect, to simply be a completely clear vessel to express our direct experience. So we're just going to tell the truth about what we are experiencing, and the buddhi is only serving to focus and to express. And so what we will have done is successfully had the bhava, the experience, and will be giving anyone who hears the rasa, right, of sacred rhythm, divine rhythm. Okay, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. Second, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. And so you can see something is always remaining the same. Boom. Boom. What I am counting on top of that is becoming diverse, is becoming expanded, becoming more frequent, and so on. But all of that is still telling one story about this flow, this laya. And this is the success of any science, of any tradition, is to connect us to this irrevocable, undeniable truth that all of reality is one entity. And everything that we seek is at once in that moment satisfied when what we do connects us to that entity consciously. And we get the bhava, the experience of that connection, and the knowledge of that connection, the belongingness. We get the emotion we get the knowledge, and we get the state of being, all. So I'll very quickly play just a few more beats to end our session with a nice mood, because the Mridanga can speak so much more than any of these words. So before I was playing what we call Chaturasra Jati, which is the masculine, the 1, 2, 4, 8. Now I'll play what the other counterpart, which is so that square says it's the chakra moving in 1, 2, 3, 4. And the second one is the feminine, which is a triangle chakra saying 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So rhythm always has two halves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Full half with the bass playing, the masculine, and then empty, feminine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. Om Mridangaya Namo Namaha. Om Tat Sat. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And thank you once more, Sham.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. We can just go on, forever. Beautiful. Any questions? Any questions from anyone? Yes, Shwetaji. Give me, all right. Let me unmute. The person wants to mute, so you can unmute and.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing your art and healing with us. I was wondering, how would you share with the normal layperson of what the listening of the sounds does to oneself? It's like somebody who doesn't know anything about the power of cosmology, Vedas. Obviously, here in this group, there is that consciousness, but when you don't, someone listens to it even when they're walking the street, right, and they're hearing all this in India or anywhere, even part of a wedding or some event. How would you share what's happening?
Well, my immediate answer is that I would just share it by actually playing the drum. And many people, just upon hearing it and seeing it, are immediately fascinated, because even the shape of the drum itself, it's all in English what they call the golden mean, which are the sacred proportions that are always used for different constructions and so on. The Fibonacci, it's all made that way. So just exposing people sensually to it actually, to me, speaks volumes. But I think that Lakshmanji, Shan, I think he could probably speak volumes more than I could in this subject matter. And I also, I have a background studying what is commonly these days known as, somatic experiencing, which is a trauma resolution therapy. So we deal a lot with the balancing of the nervous system and so on, which of course is very, in this last century, is something that has recently come into the English-speaking cultures from the Sanskrit traditions. Largely you can say maybe through the, some of the Buddhist channels have talked about, mindfulness, which, comes from Anubhav, the whole tradition of Anubhav and so on. But any instrument like this, which is, it's the earth making its vibration, and it's, tuned right? The bass and the treble are tuned to each other and it's making this kind of vibration. Anything doing that job will certainly have a balancing effect, but specifically this one will have an inciting balanced effect. So because it's on the pancham, it tends to, right, produce more intensified, exciting, right, emotion as opposed to lulling, soothing, calming ones. And please, Sean, if you have any opinions or thoughts on this, I welcome them.
Well, I don't have much to share, but you know, how you're connecting to the Purusha Prakriti, and you know, the way, you know, the gap is more important than the music, and that's actually you're doing the gap, you know, the space in between it creates. And as you know, it depends on what you watch, whether it is the sound, are you watching the sound or the no sound. And so that no sound is where, you know, you're connecting that wonderfully through this, which is good, you know, which is connecting the theory of, you know, origin theory, and also the you know, Purusha Prakriti, which is fundamentals for Ayurveda, Siddha. So these all are, I think, it's a very deep level science, and we need to really, you know, do a more research on how these vibrations can affect just by listening, as Swetaji told, you know, how just by listening, nobody knows, you know, if they don't want to even learn, but how this can really impact. And so recently we had one of the students who went with us to present something. She, you know, Sanjana, she was talking about how this listening to this ancient music can change, you know, make changes in autism kids. Studies have been done there, where, you know, you can, so that shows that, you know, this has an impact on the mental plane just by listening, even if you're not learning. And that has to do with the, you know, shift in consciousness, basically, you know, each time if you're the laya you are talking about, and as you become more and more in tune, it is actually taking to the empty consciousness, the Shiva. So so, you know, you have wonderfully tied the whole concept. And, you know, I think I mean, if you have enough bandwidth, we're trying to see how we can get some courses with this. So one of the thing is we're going to conduct one 3-5 day deep workshop in Mount Soma, and all of you are welcome. And I'm thinking, you know, Bhima Karmaji is also will be there, so we can have a session in the evenings with the Mridangam, you know, deep down, and then that'll you know, fulfill the whole, you know. So the thing is, you know, when people who are interested, we could many things can be learned online, I think, like this, you know, the countings and all. And then, you know, physically, of course, that means a lot. Physical today, you know, it's very difficult for people from all over the world, if they want to learn from a guru. It's traveling and everything, but we could do some things most online, and then you know, we can meet some physical also. So that's one of the thing I'm thinking for now. As far as Mridangam and things like that, my experience, I got it very naturally, the count, but I didn't have an opportunity to learn all this just in the temple, you know, not with experience, but it's naturally, the count goes inside very easily, and didn't get a chance to learn from a traditional school. So, I think there will be people like me who will be very much interested in learning traditionally. So,
yeah, just I mean, not everyone will be a drummer, but it's one of these arts. There's like the 7 traditional arts that you study, like Vyakaran and Jyotish and different basic arts, because knowing these things really, whatever field of work you're going to go into, they really give a deep lens or a way to like perceive them. And so understanding rhythmic structure, even in a basic way, really gives us a deep insight into whatever we're doing actually, and helps us see it in a structured, organized way that connects it into that deeper philosophy. So it serves as that intermediary link, you can say. So in this way, even if you aren't a drummer, working with rhythm itself, and that's why I call my school Sacred Rhythm. And you can, and I'll just give a plug for Mridanga.com if anyone wants to, read anything about what I'm doing on Mridanga.com. MRIDANGA.com. You can see that. But that's really, I think, a fundamental thing that all of us will get a lot of interest in and benefit from, is understanding that sacred rhythm and how it ties the whole cosmology together, and as well brings a lot of focus and discipline into whatever field of work we're in. Gives us a superpower, you can say.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
So thank you so much for this wonderful presentation, and we will definitely see how this can be turned into a full course in the future. And I think people will appreciate this form of learning, because there are very few people who can integrate all these things together, as Mridangam. So right now, what we call, we are last week, we had a couple of weeks ago, we had a youth career accelerator program, and this is for very young students who we trained for a couple of days. So we're going to have one more youth career accelerator program. Maybe I can share. So those who missed, young kids, those who have missed this program, so this is the one. It is from August 5th to 16th. Maybe we can even integrate the Mridangam too in this course, if the time permits for you. So we can, this is a wonderful course, and students get benefited. They can present paper, they can be part of our team. We had a bunch of students. We went to Maharishi University of Management. They got like a training there, and then they presented in a major conference, all on ancient science and technology. And we can do research on topics such as, this Mridangam, for example, the science, a review paper, or, even deeper things on sound systems, how this is going to impact our brain, all these things, modern yet scientific knowledge from ancient. So these kind of things we can incorporate. So another one is the we are starting the course. So that course is transdisciplinary science and technology. Every semester we teach different courses. This is for everyone, not just the youth, but youth could also join if you have enough time. We train on different areas of ancient science and technology. From usually I do this, but now I'm thinking adding the different faculty on that different course. So we have a transdisciplinary science and technology given by different faculty, which will fulfill the different ancient sciences, including Vastu, Ayurveda, Siddha, fundamentals of all the ancient knowledge, ancient physics, alchemy, music, everything put together. It's a 3-month course. So if you are welcome to attend that course, and that's a very transformative course. A lot of people who took these courses have changed their entire lifestyle. They've shifted their, completely to a different level of consciousness. So we strongly recommend all of you to, and also your friends, to spread this word about the transdisciplinary science and technology. So it starts. It's on Tuesdays and Thursdays, every Tuesdays and Thursdays, and between 6:30 to 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. So if anybody is interested, please shoot me an email, info@vetha.org, and this time we can also have the music part in that course also. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you, Bhima-ji, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. Catch you next week.